Hey, welcome to Make Your Money Matter. I'm your host, Brad Barrett. I'm also a managing director and partner here at One Capital Management. Hey, sometimes my producer and I, we get into conversations behind the scenes a little bit, and I actually thought for today's show, I'd show you a little bit about that. I think it's interesting to see some of the behind the scenes conversations. We had a great conversation. We always do typically, but this one was really special to us, I think, and it was something I wanted to share with you. So hope you enjoy.
Ask my dad, do you have review meetings on this stuff? Because I'd like to see what all of these things say, because I'm the head of the trust.
Mm-hmm.
When and if you pass away, I'd like to know what that stuff says ahead of time.
That's funny. It's interesting, and I've said this before many times, right? You've heard me say this, like money, politics, religion are all things we keep close to our chest. And it's so funny to me that money is it's almost like a taboo subject matter, especially for families. And a lot of parents, especially in certain generations, I mean, let's be candid here for a second, right? We're only basically one generation away from the Great Depression era. So a lot of our parents, a lot of our grandparents were raised in the era where if you didn't have the money, you didn't buy things. Like, it wasn't credit cards, I mean, heck, retirement plans have just been around for 50 or 60 years. I mean, this is all newer stuff. So the notion of involving a child in matters of finance within a household is still somewhat of a new concept. And I think, we talk a lot on our show about, this next generation, this wealth transfer that's happening. It's amazing to me as an advisor of how many people in this wealth transfer are going to be receiving these money and not even know the amount, the desires of the parents or grandparents, what they want to do with it. And so I always say, like, knowledge is power, right? And I think, years ago, my mom was a teacher. I would do something called this kids finance coach. And she was a first grade teacher and a fourth grade teacher. This is like real young. But I would go in and talk at different grades, depending on what level it was, about, what a bank was, or what a dollar is, and just real basic concepts. And then it started me thinking years ago, like, we don't learn money concepts in high school. Like, home ec is the closest thing we probably have, to learning things outside of just curriculum, right? Basic things. And maybe you'll take an economics course in high school, and maybe one of your, prerequisites in college, but it's not something we learn about direct money management. And so imagine then you're inheriting it, right? So it's not something you earned necessarily, which is a whole other host of emotions, how we treat money and how we look at it. And I would always advise, I said, look, the more people feel comfortable with explaining what's going on, I just feel like the more prepared you're going to be to carry out the wishes and desires of what your parents want to see happen with whatever they leave, right? Same thing with any other client.
It's not really about that you've got the trust set up and then you just leave it and you just kind of wash your hands. Like,
Yeah.
Okay, I got the trust set up. Now I'm done.
Yeah.
Well, isn't there a constant, shouldn't you look at this every year?
Yes and no. Depending on when you start the trust, right? Things that you want they call them amendments to them, right? If you want an amendment to the trust, there's some bigger things that would have to happen in your life. Like, obviously some quick material amendments would be a moving of a house because your house might be in the trust, things like that, right? But maybe you had a trust when you had your first child and you actually had one or two or three more children, right? You want to do some amendments to add those kids to the trust. I think the next physical change or amendment would be when you have grandkids potentially, and what you want to be doing within the generations of the trust. So on an annual review, do you need to do it? Not necessarily. It just depends on what's been happening within the family that would lead for a change, right? It's different than, say, an investment portfolio review or a financial plan review, because a lot more things can adjust course within those plans versus an estate plan. Hey, I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, make sure to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss a single episode. And always remember to make your money matter.